My name is Eric Van Horn. I bought my first franchise in my 20s, and since then, I've owned 6 brands with 25 stores in 8 states. I've also helped 1,000 people find the right franchise for them. People like us who are not cut out for the 9 to 5 and like to work smarter, not harder. How do we find the right franchise, buy it, grow it, sell it, and how do we do it in a way to own the business without it owning us? Those are the questions, and I'm on a mission to give you the answers. Welcome to Franchise Secrets. Eric Van Horn here with Franchise Secrets. Today's guest is Dan Fleyshman. Dan is the youngest founder of a publicly traded company in history. After licensing his apparel for $9.5 million at the age of 19, he went on to scale an energy drink into 55,000 retail stores. Over the years, Fleyshman has launched one of the top 5 poker sites globally, and that has thrown 37 elevator night events, co-founded the 100 Million Mastermind Experience, which I'm a part of, by the way, and has spoken to hundreds of business events, angel invested in 36 companies, and just on and on and on. $60 million with social media influencers, and he's in franchising. And so I want to dive into things with Dan. Dan, first saw you at an event with our mutual friend, Bedros Keuilian, and you spoke at one of his events. Bedros has become a friend over the years, and getting to know you through the mastermind that you started with Joel, 100 Million Mastermind Experience, which was amazing. But man, thanks for coming on the show. Can you give us a little bit more insight into some of the things that I may have missed in that intro?
I think you covered a lot of it. I mean, the main thing is my passion projects, my charity. We make backpacks for the homeless with 150 emergency supply items inside. Been doing that for 8 years. I try to tie charity into every one of my businesses or events or live events. Elevator Nights is a portion of Elevator Studios. So the social media agency that we spend 60 million bucks from, Elevator Nights is the live events. Those are free. So I've done 38 free events for entrepreneurs, and those have between 300 and 1,000 people on them. And we've funded a lot of those companies, whether I do it personally, or my agency does it, or the guests do it. And so I like entrepreneur. I like action.
How does it even work? What's a budget on a free event that you launch? They're not like come join a picnic and bring some
Right.
food and do a potluck.
Yeah. So most of the elevator nights are between 30 and 50,000, and some of them could be at closer to 100,000. But most of them I can do for that 30 to 50K range. And then whenever I throw like a bigger production, like I rent out a movie theater and there's 900 people, those can cost me 80, 90 grand.
So what's the purpose of that? Throw out 80, 90 grand. Who comes? Like, who are the people? What are some of the people that, who are they that come to that? And why do that? Because you're not just doing it. Is that a give back thing, or is it give back and there is return on investment or return on relationship?
Sure. So there's no clear return on investment because I don't allow any sales on stage. There's no sponsors allowed, and there's no tickets for sale. And the companies that present are not allowed to pay me either. So it is kind of Robin Hood-ish in that sense. However, I'm also not shy about it. It does build my personal brand, and I get deal flow from it, just not a direct
Yep,
ROI. That makes sense. And so
100%.
I don't have any clear ask or clear sales there, but because I'm the only one throwing this many events all the time for entrepreneurs and investors, I get recommended so much deal flow that I don't mind the long. It's like the long game that I've been
Yep.
doing this before I even had an agency. Really, like 7 years ago, I had an agency that was small, doing maybe 8 to 12 million bucks a year of influencer ad spend, but I was still spending the same amount on my elevator night events, and I'd only invested in like 2 or 3, 4 companies at the time. So it was a long game, not knowing it was a long game, if that makes sense. But I know by throwing it, stuff happens, right? If I help your company get funded or that restaurant chain gets another 2 million bucks because my friends invested to it, stuff happens. And whether I get a direct ROI now or 6 years from now, I'm still happy about it.
So what's your mentality with that? Because I'm not at that level. I do a lot of stuff just to connect people. Some people are connecting people, putting 2 people in touch, whether it's someone that wants to grow a franchise or someone that has an idea that wants to start a franchise. I'm giving them to other people in the industry, and I'm not making any money out of it. And I know other people are getting, a cut here and a cut there. And I'm thinking, for my mentality up to this point has been, there'll be return on that relationship at some point. I would rather not make, 10,000 here, 50,000 there if there's bigger upside just by having a relationship. So comment on that.
I do both. When I believe it's a straight financial transaction, I do want a commission. So
Hmm.
if Eric says, "Hey, I'm going to put in 500,000 into this restaurant," I would be interested in a commission or a percentage of that restaurant. That is a straight up financial transaction.
Hmm.
Most of the time, the other 90% of the time, I introduce this person to this restaurant owner, and one day he puts 500K in. I'm not chasing people down. I'm not like counting every single time or like having a mental checklist like, oh, I put him with him at a restaurant and now that guy invested. That's not what I mean. I mean, if restaurant owner says, "Hey, I need 500K," and I go get him 500K, I wouldn't mind having a couple percent of that restaurant in perpetuity because I helped change his life.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Makes total
However,
sense.
if I just said, "Hey, meet Eric, he's great in the franchise space," and then 9 months from now you invest in that guy or you franchise locations, I wouldn't even for a second think about having a piece of that.
Yep. Very much same mentality that I have. And I want to get into the some have some notes of things that I want to cover. I do want to cover the giving back and the charity aspect of that. That's something I want to cover. I want to get into private equity, why private equity invested into the franchisor that you're invested in. And it's called Everbowl. And I want to talk about your relationship with Jeff Fenster, the founder of that company, and then your role as a franchisee in that company, and how in the heck can people invest into a, this is called in the food industry, how can they invest into that kind of semi absentee or put in a management team in place. So I want to get into all of that. You are one of the go-to guys for social media. I want your perspective, again, the audience, franchisees and franchisors, your perspective on social media or any nuggets that you would like to give the audience.
Sure. So as a franchisee or franchisor, you're hoping that the parent company does marketing for you, right? And you're paying usually 3 to 6% of that gross revenue to that marketing fee. Let's call it 3% on average, hoping that the franchisor does help you with marketing or does national marketing. However, you got to take things in your own hands. If you're in Wichita, Kansas, and that parent company is in New Mexico, they're going to do national marketing, but not that much for you on an individual basis. And even if they did crush it, right? Let's say you own a big household name brand restaurant franchise, you still need to do localized marketing because it's not expensive and it builds community and it gets you repeat customers. Here's what I mean by that. If you are the local restaurant in Wichita, Kansas, right, and you sponsor the local baseball team and those moms and dads love you, that's way more valuable than the parent company getting a Super Bowl commercial. That's cool. They'll look up to it. That edifies you. But you supporting the local baseball team, the local military, the local fire department, the local police department for $500 and 2 grand is, it pays for itself 30 times over. Because if the firemen come to you once a week, or the moms come to you every other week, or the dads come to you, the police department, or the local nurses and doctors come to you, think about how much they spend week after week after week after week, and you're not doing a restaurant for a 1 month gig. You're a lifer, right? Like you're when you get a franchise, you're in it for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or hopefully for 20, 30 years, right? And so you want your local community to be involved with you. And so by building your social media presence, sponsoring the local events, when I say local, I mean like hyper local, within 10, 15 miles, right? Because once you start to get 20 miles, 30 miles away, they'll
Yeah.
come to you, but it's not a impulse order, right? If I live 4 miles from you, you want me the most because I'm most likely to drive by you for work or recommend people to you, etc. And so I like taking over my local market by sponsoring localized events, localized businesses, localized charities. So I get the heartstrings, I pull on the heartstrings, make them feel a part of my brand, sponsoring them with cash or food. I'm also trying to sponsor buildings. So high rise buildings, apartment buildings, local campuses, college campuses, obviously office buildings. I want those buildings for them to feel like they can take, if they taste my food once or they come by once, I don't care if I break even or lose money.
Hmm.
I'm hooking them in the same concept of a drug dealer giving that first hit. If my food is good, like let's say I own Crumble cookies or I own Everbowl acai, like if I own something that I think people like, I just want them to taste it once and then they do the rest for me. They'll recommend me to their friends, they'll bring their families in, they'll recommend me to their staff, hopefully do catering through me because that's where the real money is. And so I'm constantly trying to be involved in the local community. And through that, posting those videos and photos on our local social media account. So even if we're a big franchisee, I want a localized social media account for me in Wichita, Kansas. So as I do those things, I sponsor the baseball game, I sponsor the fire department, I did the charity event, etc. I'm posting those photos and videos. So even the people that weren't directly impacted see me in action and want to still support me.
How do you position that? Because I can see a lot of franchisees and franchisors out there. They'll go do a charity event and they're like, hey, we just gave $500 or $1,000 to charity X in my local market. Thumbs up. Is that the best way to do it? Or is there a better way to position that?
Yes. So it's showing the before, during, and after. It's showing the story, not the check, right? You showing the check is an applause to yourself. You showing, hey, I'm really excited. This Sunday, we're sponsoring the fire department. 16 years ago, they came and saved my house. Like telling a story of
Mhm.
why. Why do you care? Whether it's you directly or somebody, friend or family, whatever, during the event. So at the event or whatever that function is, showing the fact that you're there, you're supporting, you're in your suit and tie, or you're there with your wife or your husband or kids, whatever, like showing the action, and then showing afterwards a wrap up of what happened or how the event went or why. And so by doing that, you now have at least three pieces of content from one $500 or $1,000 experience.
So I have understood the power of storytelling for the last few years. I imagine that you've been doing that, understanding the value of that for much longer. Our mutual friend Pete Vargas is the one that's kind of introduced me to that and kind of opened my eyes to the power of the story. What would you recommend for somebody that's kind of hearing this thing as a first time telling a story and they don't even know where to begin?
Sure. So story is important because first you need the cover, right? You need to understand how are you going to hook someone in to want to listen to your story. Whether you're selling acai bowls, cookies, burritos, pizza, whatever your type of franchise, dry cleaning, whatever that your franchise is, this the cover story is the most important because that's when people make a decision if they want to keep reading or keep watching or keep listening, right? It's the same thing when you hear about clickbait on YouTube. It's
Hmm.
that first title that makes people have a decision whether they want to go down the rabbit hole with you. So, story, first thing, boom, the cover. Why? What's the hook? Why do people listen or care? Then, once they've dove in and they open up, now you have to tell your story or what they're listening to right away. Like right away. You don't have a long time. We're in a very ADD society. So, you've got to hit them right away with some type of headline or shocking thing or leading them to what's later in the storyline right up front, just like a TV show or a movie. So
It's kind of like, just real quick, it's kind of like what I did at the beginning of this. We know that you have something to do with franchising. And we talked about what you're going to be talking about a little bit later, but we're not talking about that right now. So people are waiting right now to hear about how did the youngest founder of a publicly traded company, how was his role in franchising? We're going to get all to this stuff first. We're going to get to that later, but we're doing all this stuff first.
yes, exactly. And so during that story, there's buildup, right? And it makes the endpoint more interesting, right? By explaining social media, angel investing, charity, etc. When we do get to Everbowl and what's happening with all those locations and why I did it and what's happening, now it becomes more compelling because there's been buildup, they're hearing background, and now when we get to the actual story, they have context.
He just did it to you guys right there in about 4 sentences. He just created more of that for you. So you guys want to listen to everything that he just said.
So now you have the meat of your story, the middle, right? That's like page 5 to page 80 of your story of your book. And so you have a 100-page book. That part is where you're just explaining, showing, right? That's where you're showing your staff, or you're showing your behind the scenes, or you're showing when you're at the local farmers market, like showing whatever your business does. Like that's where you're telling your story, right? The ending is the highlight reel of a story. That's a wrap up time. This is where you're like, this is what we did. This is how we did it. Look at all the pictures and videos. Da, 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 and this is what we're going to do in the future for book number 2 or chapter number 2 or series number 2. And so think about most importantly the cover. That's the hook. Opening page. That's where you really get them engaged for what's going to happen later. Then you give them the meat and potatoes in between, and then wrap it all up at the end.
That's perfect. People, if you probably need to go back, re-listen to that, take some notes, look at the show notes because there is absolute gold in what he just gave you. Again, a lot of the audience here, and I see the problem in franchising in general, is the marketing departments, a lot of franchisees are not as current on the nuances of social marketing and even the foundation of how to do that. And it starts with one of the key things in that is story. You mentioned something earlier before we got, as you were talking about story, you were talking about Everbowl, which is the franchise or and the franchisee that you're involved in that company. You said, but the real money is in catering,
Yep.
and there's truth to that. Anybody that knows kind of the food industry like that, there's money in the in the front end of the store, but there's money in catering. And I've seen a lot more companies kind of shift to more of that catering model, but the public facing is where people can come in and get their stuff. I think in any franchise that you get involved with, you need to know where the money is, where the profit centers are, and what the thing behind the thing is, and that's catering with Crumble Cookies and Everbowl. So dive into that a little bit more. Why is that, like, what's your mindset around that, and why is that so important, the catering
So
piece of it?
what's great about catering is they do bulk orders. They're paying more than full retail. They're paying fees, and the only extra work for you is just having one or two of your staff members drive over there and set up, and then break it down and drive back. In that process, if a normal order, let's say a normal uh, sales at your store is $1,000 a day, for example, well, you're going to get almost 500 to $1,000 in one catering order, and it's not like they take all day long. And so, whether you're bringing cookies, you're bringing burritos, you're bringing sandwiches, or you're bringing acai bowls, the concept is still the same. And so, you're getting full rack rate for what you're selling, plus fees on top, plus. And they're getting a tip usually too. So the staff members are happy. And so if all of a sudden a $700 order is now 850 plus a 20% tip, it's all of a sudden $1,000. Think about how much profit margins there for the extra expenses. Hey, two of my staff had to drive 8 minutes away and then drive back. Right.
Yep. So many of us franchisees and franchisors just see the basic revenue lines, and we just want to do more of that, when there's a lot of profit centers that we are not considering at the franchisor level. I know that you talk with your partner Jeff about that quite a bit. You've got a lot of different profit centers at the franchisor that also benefits the franchisee, but franchisees need to be looking at that stuff too, because there's more than just your normal revenue lines of on your P&L. Do you have any comments on that? I'm trying to increase that revenue line and if you can talk about different industries, if you can.
I would either have one staff member focused on catering gigs, or spend 1 or 2 hours yourself or one of your staff members where if you just spent 1 or 2 hours a day, think about this for a second. 1 or 2 hours a day of reaching out to every office building in the area. How many catering gigs do you need to pay for one person, right? The catering gigs are going to be $500, $1,000, $400, $800, sometimes a couple thousand. I'm not even counting weddings or big corporate functions. I'm just talking about your normal office caterings can be $300 to $1,000 depending on the staff. That is a lot of money, and they're not going to order from you once because you probably have good food, right? I'm assuming that somebody listening here has good food, or beverages or smoothies or whatever service you do. So by just spending, even if you just spend 2 hours a day, you're talking about 5, 6, 700 hours a year of calling. You're telling me you can't get one client per hour, let alone one client per 10 hours? If I just told you you're going to get 50 extra clients a year, and they're going to spend an extra $1,000 a year with you, 50 grand for, like, we just really break it down and think about it. And
Mhm.
when somebody experiences your food or beverage or whatever you do at a corporate function or a catering event or in their backyard for their friend's barbecue, they now have an emotional affinity to you. And so they are most likely going to become your customer at your place of business. And hopefully, you're going to get more catering gigs from your referrals. When you go to catering at the local, let's say Cisco, some big computer companies in your headquarters, their headquarters is there, and you go do the catering for their 84 staff or 840 staff, what happens during that time? An emotional attachment comes to you because you're feeding them. Just like what they always say, like the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. It's the same concept. If you're at an office building, you're feeding women, children, doesn't matter. You are now getting to their heart through their stomachs.
Mhm.
And so in that process, what happens when little Billy is 11 years old and he wants you to cater his birthday party now? because he loves your cookies or he loves your pizza or he loves your acai bowl. And so just going through the process of like spending 1 or 2 hours a day contacting, outreach nonstop, nobody's going to be upset about you offering them food. Because in that catering call, you're going there to bring them a food tasting. Who's going to turn you down?
Hmm.
Nobody. You want to come bring me some sandwiches or bring me acai? Come on. Whether I'm going to order from you or not, I'm happy for you to come bring us food for the office, right?
Yep.
That's a
Yep.
free tasting. What's a free tasting cost you? $21 and an hour.
Yep.
But you start getting clients like that, and then they repeat order, which most of them will repeat order because, again, I think you have good food if you're listening right now. And so, if you believe that, spend the time to go out there and call every office building, and that'll lead you to everything else.
So smart. One of the comments that you made is you said, think about it. The problem that I see is a lot of people don't take the time to think or to get other people to look at your business. Because when let's face it, when we're in our business, it's hard to look from an outsider's perspective. So, how important is just thinking time or time to strategize on your businesses?
So, I always say you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame. And so when you're inside of your restaurant, you're in that 800 square feet, you're working away all day long, you can't see how people look at you when they drive in from the parking lot. You can't see how they look at you when they're at their local schools or offices or drive by you on the street. You don't look at it that way because you're inside those four walls all day and night. And so I ask, like I literally ask. And by asking, you now cause people to have an emotional attachment to you. Everything I talk about is getting that emotional attachment or
Mhm.
top of mind awareness. So if you post on Facebook a picture of the outside of your restaurant and say, what's the first thing you guys think about when you pull up to our restaurant? All of a sudden, 46 people comment about what they think about with your restaurant. What did you do? You made them sit there and think about your restaurant, stare at your picture, and think about a memory of you. You are now implanted into that person's mind and hopefully into their stomach and mouth later because they now think about you. And all you did was ask a very simple question. And in that process of the 46 comments, 42 of them might be nonsense, right? They might say, oh, I pull up and I think about ordering a sandwich, or oh, I pull up and think about how much I'm going to spend. Who cares? But
Mhm.
then one of those comments of the four, you're like, wait a minute, that's interesting. Maybe I should, on the side of my building, I didn't realize there's a dumpster there and it's an eyesore. Maybe I should cover it up and I'm going to put like a curtain there. I'm going to put like, move it back 5 feet so people can't see it when they pull up. Oh, I didn't realize that my trash can's in the way when people walk up around the corner from the parking. So spots 3 through 7 are blocked by a trash can. That's gross. Maybe I should move that 10 feet over. Like you don't think about that.
Nope.
And so just asking the question helps a lot. And I really do think a lot about my business because in that process of like really thinking, one thing, one thing changes everything. If, if your business does 400K a year and I add 3% to that, that's 12 grand a year. Not 12 grand a year once. You're going to be in this thing for 5, 10, 20 years. So that little 12 grand becomes 6 figures to you. But one little thing because your napkins are too expensive or your forks are too expensive or you're open you should open 30 minutes earlier because people actually go to work at 7:30 a.m. not 8 a.m. Like the littlest thing could change your life by 6 figures a year. And so I really do deep dive on that. And the last thing I'll say is I obsessively stalk my competitors. Not like an evil like I'm going to get them. I don't have any actual anger towards them. Like I don't compete with my competitors. I know that sounds weird. I don't compete with my competitors. I study them and I fix what's wrong and I do more of what they do right. That's it. I'm not there to hurt them or battle with them.
I want to dive into that more. Go into this whole thing with competitors because I think this is super interesting.
So competitors help an industry. Doesn't matter what. I owned an online poker site. There was 550 poker sites. I owned an energy drink. I was number 7 out of 900 energy drinks. Nobody as a consumer has just one poker account. Nobody as a consumer only drinks Red Bull or Monster or Rockstar. They drink multiple. Nobody that has a DraftKings account doesn't have a FanDuel account. Nobody that has a Visa card in their wallet doesn't have an Amex also. And so you don't need your customer, you're cocky to expect or think your customer is only going to be with you or your company or brand.
Mhm.
And so I'm unemotional to the fact that I know that they're going to go shop or utilize my competitors. It's totally fine. It's my job to just be better at whatever I can and do less of the bad stuff. And so less of the bad stuff would be if I was a credit card company and they're 2.9%, make mine 2.5%, right? It's a necessary evil. There's going to be a percentage fee. Maybe I can make it a little bit less for them. When I'm stalking them, I'm obsessive to check every social media platform. I'm also looking at Google, Yelp. I'm looking at the comments. Like I'm literally like a stalker. I'm looking at what's going on. What are people saying? Because it's easy to hear what they're saying as a brand. It's hard for people to sit there and look at comment number 46 and see that Becky hates the fact that that acai bowl comes in a paper bowl that melts and it seeps through and breaks, right? And then I notice on comment number 32, the forks are too flimsy and they hate the paper straw. Like those are things that people
Mhm.
don't talk about. I want to know that because if I can change my paper straw, but then, hey, wait a minute. Everybody keeps saying their spoon is amazing. Their forks suck, right? Their paper straw sucks and their bowl, there's bad things happening. But their spoon is crushing it. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's the best spoon ever. I keep it with me because it's the best. What am I going to do? I'm going to go find that spoon and do whatever I can to make it that spoon or better. And so that little change of me just looking at Yelp reviews and looking on Facebook comments and looking at Instagram comments could change the entire scope of my business because I might not own one Everbowl. I might own three or four or five. And so if I have the best spoon and my spoon is purple now and it doesn't break and it's like whatever, that whole process happened because I read a comment.
That's great. I mean, this one thing, guys. I mean, we just started talking about competition, and Dan gave such. We went down different rabbit holes, gave such gold in there, and you can apply that to any part of your business. We're talking a lot about food today and QSR type concepts, but you can apply this to anywhere. I heard listening to a podcast, service based podcast, because I'm doing more service based companies as a franchisor, and I was on listening to a podcast with Jay Abraham, and Jay is a really, really smart guy. And, you and I both know Jay. And he talked about the similar type thing, stalking your competition. And he made a comment in there that I remembered right now. He's like, because when people are leaving a comment, they're kind of doing it out of emotion and they're not really thinking about it. So you can get the best and the worst because it's kind of like it just comes up. So it's just raw emotion out of that you're not going to get if you were to do it in a survey or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting.
It doesn't matter if you buy H&R Block, an accounting office, or you buy a Coldwell Banker, or you buy, whatever. In that same process, if you notice that, hey, the waiting room, they have to wait for 25 minutes and everybody keeps complaining, okay, make sure you don't make them wait for 25 minutes and fix whatever you can that you have contact with them in the first 5 minutes so they don't feel that way. Their waiting room, everybody loves the fact that they have iPads and magazines. Okay, well, now you know that they like the iPads and the magazines. For the kids, there's also coloring books, but there's no coloring books at yours. Add coloring books because now you know when people bring their kids over, now they got coloring books. And so the same concept, whether I'm talking about food, it's the same thing for a dry cleaner, a real estate office, an accounting office, etc. It's the same concept. What are they doing right and wrong? Like I'll go visit a location as a customer. Like I
Mm-hmm.
go there and I want to go through the process. When I pulled up to the parking, what did it look like? When I walked in, was I greeted? Was I greeted at a restaurant, an accounting office, a real estate office? It's all the same concept. It's all people. When I sit down, how is the seats? Are they plastic and terrible? Are they comfy? Are they too nice? Do I feel like it's too fancy? Like they say, if your lawyer's office is too fancy, then they're probably going to overcharge you. Like I'm looking at every little detail, what's nice, what's bad, and I want to fix and add to all of that.
And you're going in with that mindset. So many people, they go into the mindset like, I'm better than my
Right.
competition.
Right.
And if you think you go in with the mindset of I'm better than the competition, you're never going to learn anything. So you got to go into that with that open-minded mind so you can start to see the things that they really do better and be okay with it. Competition is doing better stuff than you. And then you can really identify the things where they're weaker than you that you can change. But don't just make sure you don't have that mindset, that scarcity mindset that says I'm better than my competition. So you really can't get the full benefit. And an action item, if I'm listening to this podcast and I'm a franchisee or franchisor, I would spend 2 hours or 5 hours over the next week or two and start doing what we're talking about right now. You will learn so much about your business and the competition. And the worst thing that can happen is you make your company better. we've shifted between QSR and H&R Block and Coldwell Banker. One of the things I want to talk about is I want you to give a little bit on the 100M mastermind. And I'm one of the only franchise guys in
Yeah.
there. It's full of incredibly successful entrepreneurs in a lot of e-com and real estate and health and fitness. And then me, the franchise guy. I love to be in rooms where I can learn from other people in other industries and not just in my own bubble. So, can you talk about a little bit 100M and about getting in rooms that are outside of your industry?
Right. And those people, they want to be investing alongside you, right?
Yep.
Because they know real estate, they know e-commerce, they know how to sell $32 million of hairbrushes. But now out of their 32 million, they netted 4.4 million. They don't know what to do with that money,
Yep.
right? Because they're not building brands, they're selling products, for example. And so a lot of those type of people want to invest into franchises because they want passive income. They're not going to go manage an H&R Block or manage an Everbowl. They're not going to. They want to be an absentee owner and just a passive investor into those. And I hear about it nonstop, like nonstop. And so it's important for you, let's say you're in the franchisee space, to be in a room full of real estate people, to be in a room full of doctors, because those real estate executives or investors and those doctors, they have excess income and they do want to invest. They could become your client, they could become your referrals, they could become your catering, they could become your investor. And so being in those rooms, you are now the standout expert. So you go to a franchise conference to meet with other franchise people and learn stuff. But when you go into a real estate room or a room full of doctors, you become what everybody's focused on.
Mhm. And it's true. Even from being a part of 100M, Kat's reached out to me multiple times. I've already been on two of the recordings of the podcast talking about franchising because I'm really the only franchise guy
Yep.
in this room full of really incredibly successful entrepreneurs. But I love it. Let's get into Everbowl. I want to talk about the franchise Everbowl. I was at one of Pete Vargas's events, learning how to, tell stories better. And then this guy behind me was wearing this Everbowl thing. I said, introduced myself and said something about franchising. He said something about franchising. And then we realized we had a number of mutual connections. And his name's Jeff Fenster, started Everbowl and an incredibly smart entrepreneur. So can you give us a little context into the Everbowl story?
Sure. So I invested because of Jeff, the founder. And that's how I look at most companies I invest in is the founder. And so I was referred to him by Dave Meltzer. And because he grew up under Dave Meltzer for like 20, 30 years, almost like an uncle or father figure. And so Dave said, "Hey, this kid Jeff is amazing. You got to meet him." And we instantly hit it off. And I grew up in San Diego, and Everbowl was based in San Diego. They had around 23 locations at the time. And so I came in to invest into the company on the parent company side. And then I brought in another friend of mine, big in the real estate game. He invested alongside me as well. And then I met with my friend Aaron Wagner. So Wags Capital out of Utah, they own 8 different restaurant brands. One being Crumble Cookies. He has like, I don't know, like 90 something locations of Crumble Cookies and growing and a bunch more under development. But Crumble Cookies are pretty expensive. Those are like 350,000 to 450,000 to build out. And so I said, "Listen, Aaron, I'm obsessed with this kid. You got to meet Jeff Fenster, like blah, blah, blah." And then they hit it off. And so it evolved into I wanted to open up locations, but I don't know how to run them, right?
Hmm.
If I sat down and that was my full time thing, of course, but I've got my social media agency, my events, my this, my that. I want to invest into those locations, but I can't run them. I went to Aaron Wagner and I found a partner. And so we ended up doing a joint venture with Wax Capital and Elevator Studios, where his team, because he spent like $2 million building like a real executive team for all these restaurants around the country that they already have. They handle everything. Scout the location. I mean, I was with him yesterday. He flew in for the day yesterday from Utah to LA. He then flew from LA today to Arizona to go look at more Everbowl locations. And then from Arizona, he goes to Vegas to look at more locations. We've signed 10 leases in the last 3 weeks. Now, he is on it. So I found someone to do a joint venture with. He manages everything. I put up the capital, and some of my friends can put up capital as well on a per location basis. And so he figured out a really easy model for a doctor or a real estate person or an e-commerce person to invest into a location, whether it's Everbowl or Crumble, mostly focused on Everbowl, where they can invest passively and they're just going to get a check every month or every quarter, and they don't have to do any of the work. His team is going to handle absolutely everything from scouting location, hiring, training, managing, oversight, etc. They get their percentage for doing that, and we all win because it's just we know an experienced person in the restaurant game is handling it.
And this is at the franchisee level or the franchisor level, or really kind of both?
So both. So uh, Wags Capital is handling a minimum of 20 locations is the deal that he signed with Everbowl to open a minimum of 20 locations. And with Elevator Studios, my agency, we're going to open at least 20 locations also. So we're able to open these locations very affordably. We're opening them for like 120 to 160,000 because they're very small. There's no kitchen, there's no stove, there's no oven, there's no hood, there's no grease trap. And so when I say there's no kitchen, I mean there's no chef, there's no cooking because it's just refrigerators and storage. And then the kids are high school and college kids that pour acai into a bowl, put some fruit and granola, and you hand it over. You can't mess it up, right? You can't even over pour. We want you to over pour. It's go ahead. Like it's they just can't mess it up. Now we have over 400 employees at Everbowl. We're at location number 29 now. Location 30 opens this Friday in Utah. We opened up in Utah, the first location 3 weeks ago, and now boom, number two is this Friday. We have a location opening every 1 to 2 weeks the rest of the year. Like
Wow.
it's crazy because they're just so small to build, and Jeff has figured out a way to basically put them on to palletize it, put them onto a pallet, drive it or ship it to the location, and then boom, build it inside that location rather quickly. And we're looking for a lot of second gen location. So we're looking
Mm-hmm.
for an old Jamba Juice, an old Yogurt Land, etc. Especially with the COVID situation, there's a lot of situations where locations are either moving out or they're not sure if they're moving out. We'll come in there and make them an offer to go, and we'll help save the day. And landlords are happy because there's a trusted brand with 30 locations coming into them, and we're able to negotiate great deals. I mean, that's why we signed 10 leases the last 3 weeks, is that a lot of these landlords are obviously excited to have a brand come in there and take on a lease. But we're getting like, sometimes we're getting 6 months free. Some of them are, we don't need much build out money. So we're not really looking for too much in TIs. But we're also adding a COVID clause in case anything else happens in the future that we can get out. Like, there's a lot of interesting
Yep.
things that are coming from this terrible situation. A lot of positive things have happened because of it.
Back to that joint venture, I have a couple of questions around that between Elevator Studios and Wags Capital. You're putting up the capital. It's not just your capital from your bank account. You have investors that are invested into that through Elevator, and then you've got Wags Capital that is experience in restaurant type brands and
Yes.
and running management teams. So what advice would you have for somebody that wants to do something like that? I mean, who can't? I mean, for somebody that can do something like that, you need to have the ability to attract investors and somebody that has experience running locations. Kind of like the hotel has management type. I'm invested in some different hotels, and they have management teams that can come in and do that. But for a new investor wanting to go bigger in franchising, what do they want to how would you advise somebody to go about finding the Wags Capital, finding the Elevator Studio type partnership?
Sure. So you're investing in experience. The same way you would invest into a founder, you're investing in experience when you want somebody to manage an operation. So if Eric Van Horn says, "Hey, I've got 12 locations," I want to bet on Eric, right? Because he doesn't have one location or two locations, he's got 12. And so can you find those people? You absolutely can in your local town. You can go outside your local town. I like to be within 1 or 2 hours of what I invested just because I like to see, feel, and touch things. So I mostly invest on the West Coast. So finding someone or finding a brand that you like, finding an operator, it's really easy to ask because when you're at those locations, they'll usually tell you who the manager or the owner is because their name is somewhere in the
Mm-hmm.
place anyways, or they'll just tell you because the staff member's happy to introduce you or let them know or leave a note for them that you'd like to talk to them about investing. And so, whatever side of the coin you're on, whether you're the one that has a restaurant and you're attracting investors, whether you're an investor that's looking to deploy capital into somebody that's experienced, there's restaurant shows everywhere. There's farmers markets everywhere. There's restaurant related conferences and websites. There's just so many ways to get a hold of people. You can find them online, on social media. Look at the local awards in your town. Like who got the best barbecue place in your town? Go and offer to invest in them, right? They only have one
Mm-hmm.
location. It's a grandma and grandpa for the last 46 years. Go make an offer. In San Diego, there was a place called Phil's Barbecue. It was a tiny place, and it had 1 to 2 hour wait always for years and years and years. My whole life growing up, Phil's Barbecue was this big and always had a wait list. Now, some investors came. Their location is the size of an Olive Garden, and they've got locations all over the place because people made good. They made good food. When Phil's Barbecue wins the award all the time, same thing in your town. If somebody's winning best pizza or best sandwich or best soup, go offer, hey, you make the best soups and you've been here for 26 years, but they only have one location and it's Grandma Jean and Grandma Joe. Hey, offer Grandma Jean and Joe that you're willing to put up money to open location 2, 3, and 4.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I want to transition a little bit into, and we're going to end with giving back, but I want to hit your opinion on how you are one of the go-to guys on social media influencer marketing. How do you do that in conjunction with or separately from grassroots, like like the old guerrilla marketing tactics or grassroots type tactics?
What social media does is it allows you to amplify your grassroots. So if you're out there and you got a table at the farmer's market, or you've got a table at the local sports arena during a football game or the local high school college game, during that time, I'm just taking photos and videos to show again the before, during, and after. So I'm getting 3 to 5 pieces of content out of that one 3 hour event. That one high school football game or that one college football game, basketball game, I have my table set up there. I'm showing content of me preparing for that game, putting on my Wichita, Kansas, whatever the name of the high school team is there. I'm prepared with that. I'm showing that content. As soon as I get there, I'm making videos and photos of us setting up at the tailgate or setting up at the farmer's market or setting up whatever that is. During it, I'm trying to get customers that I'm happy to take photos or videos with, or my table's really busy, right? All of a sudden there's 14 people in line at my table. Boom, that's a photo. I get, how long it takes to take a photo? It's like 7 seconds, right? And so people make it overcomplicated. I don't need a fancy videographer. I don't need a fancy camera person. The iPhone and Android phones they're so good now. And so taking 7 seconds or 30 seconds or 2 minutes to get a bunch of photos and literally just walk over, take a photo of a big line of people, that content, guess what that does? It edifies you. Because now when you post your photo on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram of a line of 14 people at a college football game, it makes it look like you are a really good food that people are willing to wait for.
Yep.
You know how much it costs to take a photo on your phone? It's $0.00. You know how much it costs to post it on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Google, like anywhere? $0.00. Your upside is everything. You can get catering gigs, investors, partners, franchisees. Who knows what's going to happen? Your downside is zero. Zero. All you're doing is posting about the fact that you have a line at a local college football game while you're wearing the freaking college hat. That's it. And so people try to overcomplicate it and make it sound like it's a lot of work. You were going to go do the catering anyways, right? Or you were going to go to the farmer's market or the football game anyways. All I'm saying is take some photos and videos while you're there.
When you're doing that and you are posting that, do you post like, hey, I'm, great at catering, call this number to learn more about what I can do to help you, cater your next event? Or is there a different message that you have on those types of posts?
So most of the time people think that they need a call to action. They don't. Like if I own a local real estate office and I want to hire you for catering and I see you post your barbecue at the college football game, I know how to go to the link in bio or your phone number or email address. You don't have to tell me that you do catering. I'm watching you do catering. And so a lot of times people are like, and I tell this to my clients on the social media side, like I rarely ever use affiliate codes or discount codes or any of that stuff because the customer, if the girl wants to buy a dress from Fashion Nova, she knows how to buy a dress from Fashion Nova, I promise, right? The girl's got 300 dresses over the last 22 years of her life. I don't have to tell her to swipe up. She knows to swipe up. I just don't need to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you make it easy for them. So you do need your link in bio. You do need your phone number, your email address, your address, your location. You need all those things easy for them in your bio on every social media platform. Okay. All of them should look the same. It's a picture of your location or your business. It's how to contact you and make it as simple as possible what you are. By doing that, now when you're making your content, people will ask you about catering. People will contact you for your catering. You don't have to tell them that you do catering when you show them that you do catering.
So good. I see so many of us franchisees doing this the wrong way, and it feels so good when you give that CTA, when you give that call to action. They feel like you are really doing something, but less is more in most cases. Give me some nuggets. Give me some of your perspective on Yelp and all the different Google reviews and all the different review type platforms
Yeah.
out there.
So what's important is making an ask of your customers and making it easy for them or a game for them to want to do those reviews. When they know it's important to you, they will do it, especially if you give them a good experience. Because on the flip side, if they get a bad experience, they're going to go do it. And so most reviews are bad by default because most people don't take the time to go say, I love those sandwiches or I love those acai bowls, etc. If you make it a game or you make an ask, I always say, not just me, a lot of people say this, but a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So if you want people to do a Yelp review, ask them. If
Mhm.
you want people to do a review on Google or on your Instagram or on your any of your social media accounts or comment in your YouTube, ask them. If you don't ask them, you can't be mad at them for not doing it, right? Like if you're laying next to your husband or wife and you're thirsty and it's 11:46 p.m., they don't know that you're thirsty, right? They're sleeping,
Mhm.
you're about to fall asleep, but you're thirsty. They can't read your mind or know. If you ask them because you don't want to get up, or you offer because you're going to go and say something out loud, then they will know. And so a lot of times people just don't take the action of asking or making it simple and easy for someone to leave those reviews for you.
What is, I heard you, I can't remember, was it Bedros's event or a podcast I listened to that you were on? You very distinctly and quickly broke down the different social media platforms and really what they are
Sure.
and why different people use them.
So Facebook is the most important. Facebook is the largest. It'll never go away. It'll never be acquired, right? Zuckerberg is too young and too rich. And so Facebook is for the masses. This is your international platform. It's never going to go away. You need that. And you think of that as for your family, friends, followers, and you're putting out your content. And if you don't want to listen to the politics or the noise, don't scroll through, but post out, right? You don't have to read everything if you don't want to, but at least post on there. Twitter is like a news feed. Twitter is where you go to see Trump yelling about something, an NBA shot getting, a great NBA shot replay video. That's the place you go to see Kanye going crazy. Like Twitter is like a news feed for that action. It's the place that you can go viral really easily, but you're mostly shouting outward or interacting with people. And it's also good for consumers to be able to tweet at you and you can respond for customer service. Instagram is the most emotional. That's the one that people look at the most. That's the one people look at in the morning. It's the one they look at night. Some of you might be looking at it while you're listening to Eric and I right now. People just scroll through Instagram. It's like a natural thing that people are addicted to, and it's the most visual platform. Most of your content you should create for Instagram and repurpose for every other platform.
Hmm.
TikTok is the fun platform. That's where you can make your dance videos, your cooking videos, your business. By the way, business videos do great on there. That's where you're making short form content, 15 seconds up to 60. Really trying to focus on short form. Make it fun, easy to share with text on the screen because almost 86% of videos are watched on there with no volume. And so that's why people, if you notice on every single video I do, I have post captioning. You need that as often as you can because most people don't watch with volume. The next platform is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very important for people listening because you have franchisees and franchisors. Because every single person that has a LinkedIn account that's following you on your LinkedIn has a job, wants a job, has a career, is an investor, is a business owner, was a business owner. All of it is business related. There is no 14-year-old Becky 623. She doesn't exist. And so because of that, I would rather get 462 views on a LinkedIn post than 10,000 from Instagram
Hmm.
because the 462 are all business people. Now, I'm not saying to choose. I still want my 10,000 on Instagram for the masses. I want to do both. But it's important to get that 462 views on your LinkedIn post because all business people. YouTube is the only hard one. YouTube is long form content. You want to do at least 1 minute videos, preferably 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. If you're trying to monetize it, you want them to be over 10 minutes. YouTube takes work. And if you're going to add in graphics, edits, etc. However, you don't have to post on YouTube very often. So if you made like 10 good videos, spent one day filming for 4 hours, making 10 good videos, post those up there, those will still be relevant 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now. That's called evergreen content. And so making those videos, embedding yourself on a YouTube is important. You do not need to go on there once a month even. It's just not necessary. That's just a place to post your videos. Cross your fingers that it becomes a relevant topic 3 months from now or 3 years from now. What else we got? We got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Snapchat is just like the most beautiful platform that's useless. Instagram stories crushed it. You get way more views on Instagram stories. It's faster, it's sexier. So not to say not to post on Snapchat. I just, we don't do out of $60 million ad spend, I spent $0 on Snapchat influencers.
I want to have a quick follow up to that and then get into the charity and then we'll wrap up. I want you to talk to Michael. Michael's the guy that runs all my social media. And I say, Michael, we need to do more on Instagram. He's like, Eric, you're not good for Instagram. As you from my consulting business and the podcast and helping people buy franchises and helping people franchises is like, it's not good for that. You can be as rough as you want as Michael because he needs to get slapped upside the head. What would
Sure.
you say to my man, Michael?
So Michael, the main thing is it's a free roll. Your risk is nothing. It only takes one video to go viral to all of a sudden get a wave of new investors or a wave of new franchisees or a wave of new consulting clients. Your risk is zero. But what does it matter? The content you're creating is good. Taking clips from this podcast, let's say we did a 1 hour podcast, this could be 8, 9, 10, 12 different clips that are 24 seconds. One of them's 3 minutes because we go deeper. One of them is a 1 minute and 12 seconds. So some are for IGTV, some are for Instagram stories, some are for your main page. But it's 1 hour. This 1 hour can end up like Gary Vee does 30, 40 clips out of 1 hour thing, right? However, what's important is you get to leverage an audience. So let's say you made a good clip and it's 36 seconds. I'm going to want to post it. And I've got 500,000 followers. And all of a sudden, your people start seeing it. My people start seeing it. We start sharing because you made an interesting clip. If Michael makes a clip that sucks, I'm just not going to post it. I won't even say anything about it. It's just going to be in my email forever, right? And so you're giving yourself a chance to get lucky, but the process is a free roll. There is zero risk. And so what happens is people think that on TikTok, for example, or Instagram or LinkedIn, like, oh, my business video is not going to do good on TikTok or it's not going to do good on Instagram. Your upside is everything. The downside is nothing. And people like that stuff way more than you think. Because what if like a big account like at Wealth all of a sudden reposts it and they got zillions of followers, or the Millionaire Mentor reposts it and they got zillions of followers? You now get all this eyeballs because you just made a really good 36-second clip. And so my answer to all that is your risk is nothing. You do have good content because what you talk about might seem boring or mundane to you because you live in it. The same way a magician, when he does a magic trick and he makes his thumb disappear over and over and over, that's boring to him because he knows how to make a thumb disappear, right? Or how to do a card trick. But to the viewers, watching a thumb disappear or watching him pulling the ace of spades every time, magical. Mm-hmm. Same concept. Someone that doesn't know franchises, this is magic to them.
Love it. I can't wait for Michael to listen to that. And we'll see how good he is at getting the right content out as we post this on Instagram. Dan, we gotta, I've got time, but I know that you've got a hard stop. What would you say about like your charity and the real question behind that is, you doing it for publicity or are you doing it because it's something that you care about? And how as somebody that's investing into charities or doing charity stuff kind of know for themselves what the real motive is?
Sure. So I've had the charity for over 8 years. It's a 0% charity. So I pay for all overhead, all staff, all events, all everything. The motivation to me was I wanted a charity that I could see, feel, and touch. And anybody donated, they could see, feel, and touch also. And so I used to donate to, let's call it the Red Cross or the American Heart Association, great organizations with billions of dollars of funding. I didn't know if my 5K or 100K was going to do that much for them. And I knew that there was a lot of overhead with those large corporations. Again, the greater good is there, but I wanted to see, feel, and touch it. If I throw a charity poker tournament, raise 180 grand, and then hand them a check on a Sunday, I want to hear what happens a week or 2 or 3 later, right? I want to see it. I want to feel it. And so charity is also for yourself. the same way it is when you donate to people. Like there's an ego part to it for yourself.
Mhm.
So within it, I wanted to make it easy for people to copy and replicate it. And so backpacks for the homeless with 150 items inside, you could do that in Wichita, Kansas with 30 items inside and a duffel bag. It doesn't have to be a backpack. I want people to be able to knock me off. I never really asked people to donate to my charity. I want them to go replicate my charity,
Mm.
right? And so within there, I also throw 4 charity events a year of our own. And then I throw a few for other people like Steve Aoki's Brain Research. I throw that charity poker tournament every year. We do a back to school event. We do a Thanksgiving food drive, report card day, and a Christmas toy drive. All 4 of those for Trinity Kids Foundation. We do those 4 times a year for the last 5 years. I'm actively doing all these charities, and I'm rarely ever asking people to donate. I want them to replicate. I want them to be inspired by what we're doing. Does that help me with marketing? Sure, it does. But in that process, I'm never asking for anything. And I'm really asking, sorry, I am asking for one thing. I want people to replicate it.
Mhm.
So if you don't want to come to my Thanksgiving food drive and bring me groceries for the kids, that's perfectly fine. Go do that in Wichita, Kansas on your own. If you don't want to come here and donate toys to our toy drive, I'm really not expecting you to or asking you to. You can do rally this in your own city the same way.
I stinking love that, man. Hey, thanks for coming on the show. Any last bits of wisdom before you sign off?
Just get started.
I love it. Thanks again, Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.